Button. We should be live. Let me unmute it to make sure there's audio both ways.
Audio.
We should be live.
Audio.
Let me unmute it
Audio?
to make sure there's audio both ways.
Audio.
Okay, it's good.
Perhaps. We're willing. Is it ready?
Yeah, we're good.
Oh, okay. I'm just fucking rambling on.
Let's see what how does Andrew sound and how did me and Andrew sound in comparison?
You sound fine, Andrew?
I don't sound good at all.
Okay, well I can hear him at least.
Okay.
Let's get started.
From the industrial wastelands of Michigan to the fruited plains of Iowa, this is the American Greed.
You are the dead. Remain exactly where you are. Make no move until you are ordered.
We burn them to ashes and then burn the ashes. That's our official motto.
Now we can see you. Clasp your hands behind your heads. Stand out in the middle of the room. Stand back to back.
Who can explain the fascination of fire? What draws us to it, whether we're young or old?
Here comes a candle to light you to bed. Here comes a chopper to chop off your head.
And welcome to the American Greed Factory podcast. This is Nathan.
This is Conlon.
Andrew?
I have an exciting show for you this week. Everyone grab a hold of whatever you're not supposed to grab a hold of. Here we go. Here we go.
We just made Nathan watch the Mandalorian trailer.
That looks interesting.
What did I cut you off that you were gonna say?
Oh, I was saying just from the actors on screen that are not obviously the Mandalorian, it looks pretty interesting just in the cast so far. Just what's previewed in the trailer.
Yeah, the Mandalorian. It's the guy who played the Viper in Game of Thrones.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. He's a nice character in Game of Thrones.
And then looked like there was Carl Weathers there, and then Werner Herzog for no reason.
Yeah.
And
I was
then-
like, shows up.
But also, just IG-88 or one of his
Yeah.
models.
And
Yeah.
then there's Gina
Assassin.
Carano in there for like half a second.
At least a little piece of like their choreography as far as like fight, how they're good action set pieces.
But this is a television show by Jon Favreau, and it just looks like a fucking Star Wars movie.
Yeah, looks like they threw some money at it.
So I don't know if there's going to be like 5 episodes and it cost them $200 million to make or what. Or I want to see because usually like big shows, there's kind of like there'll be a base. So like you save all your money because like this is the main set, and then like you go out and spend all your money on special effects. Or if this is just going to be like a fucking Star Wars movie as a TV show.
Well, I
It's
hope.
gonna- Like Battlestar Galactica, where you have a bunch of talkie episodes, so you can have a huge battle scene.
Yeah.
Episode 7.
But also, this is like the flagship of Disney's streaming service, so they probably threw as much money behind it as they could. So.
Yeah.
I mean, according to Disney CEO, which I saw an interview piece for him today, this is treated as the biggest thing ever by Disney, and is going to be, money wise and everything else, promotional wise, it's going to be the biggest thing they've ever done. So, I could see them having like hour-long episodes with like 10 or 12 episodes for a season for the first year.
But yeah, it was like I was surprised how fantastic it looked. I also have maybe because of the ship, it gave me very Firefly vibes.
Yeah, I could see that.
But that part where you just have you see the ship flying over the sort of like crack.
World.
Yeah, and it's like Jesus. This is just a fucking Star Wars movie. They're fucking around.
They'll fuck around with the main Star Wars movies, but not
Yeah.
but not the TV show.
But yeah, you were speculating what timeline this is. I think this is just like the lead up to whatever Boba Fett is or whatever.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure because I saw the Stormtrooper armor. I can't really date that. I'm not a Star Wars expert. So.
Well, they had Death Troopers in there, but they also have regular Stormtroopers, so... Because that black shiny armor is the Death Troopers, the guys that are in Rogue One.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, this kind of has the vibe of like, because I really liked Rogue One. I think that's been my most enjoyable of the Star Wars, Disney universe version of it.
Yeah.
Because
It's the darkest.
yeah, and it just appealed. It's like, oh, this is a good story. I don't know any of these characters, but they seem serviceable, and it's very dramatic. And yeah, well, everything I really didn't like about the movies that they redid, I liked about this.
Well, it seemed like the like Imperial officers' uniforms are very Rogue One-esque.
Yeah.
well, it could be ways to save money. They'll have to do redo costumes. And
Yeah,
shit.
sure. Yeah, just borrow everything from Rogue One.
I mean, it's sitting around. Why not? But is it?
I mean, the thing with Star Wars is it's a hugely serviceable universe. You can tell a lot of stories there.
Yeah, it's always surprising that they never did.
Yeah.
And now it's almost what would you say? In danger because of Disney. They planned so many. I mean, they planned so many things, but like so much of it has not come to fruition. Being that Disney is throwing as much money behind it as they want.
Yeah, it just proves money can't buy everything. I think, and there's I mean it's I like how Star Wars is suddenly like controversial. Like now it's on the front lines of the culture war. It's like, what the hell happened to entertainment?
Well, I mean, it's mostly because of how movies are now. Because people are more invested in television shows now, and what you go to a movie for is for big spectacle stuff. Like you don't go to a movie for like some quiet indie drama. You go there for big explosions.
Yeah,
Because that's the theater experience.
Yes, it was weird. We're talking about the Matrix, and I guess pretty much confirmed that they're doing a Matrix 4.
Yeah.
It's only going to be one of the Wachowskis, and
It's Lana Wachowski's directing.
and then Carrie Moss and of course Keanu Reeves are coming back.
Yep.
Now, no one knows if this is reboot, continuing that story.
Nope. Although it's the title on IMDb is Matrix 4, which that implies a sequel continuation, but that'll probably change.
Yeah. Because remember we were talking about who should direct that. Like,
Yeah. we all said don't give it back to the Wachowskis.
yeah.
Well, they
Don't
didn't get-
don't
like-
want to direct it.
well, they only gave it back to a Wachowski.
Yeah,
so
it was
maybe
just
it
a
was the other-
Wachowski.
Maybe it was the other one that fucked it up. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. So that was interesting news.
But no, back on Star Wars and Disney's fucking up of it. Does anybody watch like the coverage of their new Jedi video game and stuff like that when they previewed like builds of it? Like
Was this for Gamescom or back at E3?
back at E3?
A little bit.
They had very unfinished graphics of like people being like disemboweled or cut in half or arms or legs cut off with lightsabers, and then Disney the week after was like, oh, we're gonna take all that out of the game. It's not. It's like, no, it's a lightsaber, it cuts through a door. It should be able to cut a human being in half.
Yeah.
Let's be realistic here, because you were just
Or at
saying,
least
like,
cauterize the intestines.
yeah. Well, I mean, because you're talking about Rogue One being dark, and it is dark, and that's what makes it good because it stands out from most of the other Star Wars universe, where it's like, yes, there's darkness in some of that, but it's also a lot of light and hope in a lot of parts too. It's not.
Well, the weirdly, the only thing I wanted out of Rogue One is that I needed everybody to die at the end of the movie. That was my requirement. It's like, for this to have meaning, for this one mission to like have meaning, everyone has to die, and everyone did.
Mission accomplished.
Because I remember like people were like disappointed with it, and I can't even remember why. Maybe some of the goofy stuff that was in it. And I was just like, everybody died. I'm grinning, just like, yes, they did what I wanted.
Well, but it just proves Disney doesn't know what the fuck people want, because they're already talking about as far as pop culture references and what the mainstream gossip is with the next and last movie of the series, and that's going to involve time travel to fix the fucking story arc.
Yeah.
And it's like, why the fuck is time travel in a Star Wars movie? And is it going to be like, oh no, we made the wrong hyperspace jump and now we're back in 1989? I mean,
Well, we'd be forward in 1989.
so it's like, which,
We're in the way in the future.
it's like, is Rey suddenly going to show up and stop Luke from killing his father? Or like,
Yeah, they're just gonna do the whole Back to the Future 2 thing. Somebody's gonna hand Biff the almanac.
and it's like, no, that's not the way to fix the franchise. The way to fix the franchise is just actually stand behind
I
something.
don't think
and
it's
commit-
broken, and because if it was really broken, that movie wouldn't have made money, but it did. And I know there's plenty of outcry about it, but who gives a shit?
No, I have
but
no-
apparently Disney does.
I
so.
have no personal qualms with either of the new movies they produced. I wouldn't say they're fantastic, but I don't hate them.
No, they're
But
enjoyable.
at the same time, it's something people have been waiting for a long time. Even though Lion King is a hot pile of shit, it still made a lot of money because everybody was expecting it and it was a spectacle.
Well, people.
It's-
Well, I mean, like this new Star Wars series, because like there's been Star Wars shit going on for a while. Is because you had the prequel stuff, then you had like all that Star Wars clone television series like was going on for like 8 fucking years.
Yeah.
And that was fairly popular. You had a couple different animations that they made. There was like that Star Wars Rebel
Yeah.
cartoon, a bunch of other shit they've been doing. I mean, it's been out there, but yeah, people want basically a mainline continuation after people were disappointed with the prequels, but still went and saw it and made them some of the most highest grossing movies of all time. So
No, it's just I think Disney needs to actually commit to things actually having real life stakes. And
but
being-
I just don't see like I don't see Lucasfilm doing any better on its own.
No. I mean, yes, George Lucas had plans to expand the universe and do new movies before Disney bought them. But at the same time, who knows when those would have came along, if ever, and what they would have been for quality. Because George Lucas sure as shit hasn't gotten any better as a fucking director over
No.
the years. So, I mean, probably would have
He's
seen
kind
much
of a
Tom-
great idea man who with lots of money.
Yeah, he was the Steve Jobs of Hollywood. Rich man with a big ego. You know, well, Steve Jobs stood back because he didn't know how to program computers, but he knew aesthetics and how
He did.
something. But yeah, I mean, unfortunately, not so much with Lucas.
I mean, you can say the same thing about Steven Spielberg. I wouldn't say he's had any, like, landmark big movies for a long time. either. Like, he's not a bad director, but he hasn't had a standout feature for at least a decade.
No, I mean he's had some Oscar bait stuff and some big hits. Like he had like Lincoln was like his Oscar bait one, and then and he's had other stuff, but like that. And then Ready Player One did surprisingly well, being
Oh,
out.
yeah, I forgot he directed that. Not-
But he's a director. I mean, well, he's a director.
yeah.
But like he hasn't written anything since like Close Encounters. So he just like gets scripts, he makes the fucking movie really fast, and he's good at his job. But he's not necessarily like he's not bringing his influence to it. He's like getting it into production and getting it made. He's not really a writer director. He's not like Quentin Tarantino. He's like there's not a lot of him in the movie.
Yeah, but that's the problem with. I mean, I know the Oscars are there for a reason, and they're different from every other award in that regard. But I can't honestly think because I was thinking about it today when I was rearranging stuff because I was rearranging my movie collection alphabetically, and I was thinking about like, yeah, I don't really have a lot of Oscar-winning movies in this fucking collection, and it's not because they're not good movies. It's because you watch it once and you never have to watch it ever again.
No.
There's no replay value. There's no like, oh, I'll learn
Well,
so much
like
more.
Oscar-
Appreciate it more.
Oscar-winning movies aren't fun to watch.
No, I know, but
they're
at the same time,
they're
it's like
important.
it's not.
And important movies are fucking boring and bummers.
But there's important movies that aren't boring. Like Seven Samurai wasn't boring, and I would watch it again. It's an important movie.
Yeah, well, also didn't win an Oscar. Or
No,
did,
I know.
Or did it win foreign film? I don't know if they had that at the time.
Well, I know I didn't win an Oscar. I'm just saying, is like as far as Oscar-winning movies, like Good Will Hunting, I'll watch again. That's actually a good movie, and it's a good actual like human.
Well, I was thinking about
story arc.
like we were talking about how like no sci-fi movie has ever won Best Picture and how
Yeah.
criminal that seems. And think of like The Arrival. Like that's an important movie that's super well made, and it didn't win an Oscar. It's like what the fuck do you have to do? And apparently it just has to be historical fucking bullshit, and then we'll give it an Oscar.
Or the lead character has to be gay or has to be some minority subgroup, basically, for
Yeah.
It's like the Harriet Tubman movie. My wife really wants to see him. Like, it's like, don't get me wrong, I love Harriet Tubman. She's a very badass woman, very big historical importance. But why the fuck do you need to see this movie? It's just Oscar bait. And it's just fucking just pandering for money. That's all it is. And it's like, but yeah, she still wants to see it, and I don't know. I don't understand why.
They should make movies like with historical figures, but they're just pure actioners trying to go for high quality. Yeah, because remember that like Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter?
Oh, God, that was a shitty movie.
Terrible movie. Kind of like
It was a great idea, kind of like,
Yeah.
or a great stupid idea.
It's like you could have like the story of George Washington and have that be like straight up, fully costumed historical drama, but didn't have this weird like evil sorcerer backstory that you know, and you know, make the movie like, you know, I mean, no
Well,
one's gonna.
that's what like made Crooked so great.
Yeah, because it's the history you know, and then this weird magical sub history.
Have you ever read Crooked? Have we ever talked about it before?
It seems familiar, but I can't pin it down.
Essentially, it's just like, what if magic existed and Nixon was like in the occult trying to save America with the help of the Soviet Union from magical beings trying to destroy America?
Okay.
And it had a very weird, like the world of rules in it were strained, like because like the spirits of North, because you had to make deals with evil spirits, and it wasn't like fully fleshed out like Harry Potter style, but like the evil spirits in North America were incredibly powerful because they're different from all the places we lived before America was settled. So it kind of gave us an advantage in the world of evil.
And like Eisenhower was the most powerful person in North America.
Yeah.
And he was vice president at the time, but then Eisenhower gets like, he gets his power like sucked away by some demon or something like that.
Well, he made a deal to have Stalin die, and it cost him all his power if Stalin could die.
I see if this became really popular, like 200 years from now, people will misremember history and say like Nixon and Eisenhower are wizards and demons.
Well, that's kind of funny because like the concept kind of makes Nixon into a good guy, but in the book he's still like a devious piece of shit.
Yeah. Does the right things, but almost for the wrong reasons.
And he's like doing like McCarthy errors and stuff, like accusing people of being communist while working with communists.
I mean, I could see this whole like fake history but real, grounded in real history movie thing going forward. Do like Benjamin Franklin's Animal House and just have him having a bunch of parties and fucking everything that moves and being like, "Hey, I invented electricity. Get over here!" And then he fucks some chick on the screen.
It's basically drunk history on a larger scale.
But also at the same time, like Thomas Jefferson just owning a bunch of slaves and falling in love with somebody, and then like they die, but then he just falls in love with somebody right away again. So it's a broken wing story type of thing. I don't know. It's just like just play off real characters and history, but just embellish the story and make it fit a realistic like modern movie. So don't do Abraham Lincoln Vampire, because that's a series of books, and I understand they were popular at one point. I don't know if they're still popular or not, because they had a bunch of different ones, but.
I mean, they had some of that stuff where they were, like, was it Pride and Prejudice and Zombies and.
Yeah, I watched that movie too. That was actually better than Abraham Lincoln Vampire. Not much, but it was better.
And then there was Sense and Sensibility and Sea Monsters.
Yeah. It was actually the dialogue from the book, and then or the story from the book, and then they would write in the weird side stories like interstitial chapters of things that happen, and then you'd have this weird like, you know, this 18th century dialogue horned into this, and there was it was some of it I remember was kind of subtle, but yeah, I don't think it had a lot of legs. You know, it didn't grow into a genre. It's like, oh, this is quirky. Okay, on to the next thing.
I mean, 'cause I don't think they made another one, because I know there was another one that was a really popular one. I can't remember what the fuck it was now. It was either Werewolf or Dr. Jekyll, and I can't remember what it was.
I wrote like a 20-minute treatment for a screenplay called Vampirates.
Vampire Pirates.
Yep.
Woman Attack at Night.
Yep.
So they're predictable. Look at that.
what
and
was it?
frightening in the 17th century. Didn't have a lot of artificial light back then.
What was the thing I meant? I can't remember what the thing I did. I think oh, shit, what was it? It was something about I was like incorporating the Black Plague and vampirism at the same time. But it was like vampirism was like the cure to the Black Plague somehow. I can't remember. Because like they'd go in like ransack towns and drink people's blood, but it was like only to stay alive. And there was like this weird like thing like if they drink people's blood, like it starts out like they were like ransacking the town, like it was like Pirates of the Caribbean, but then and then like have the frightening moment where like they bite someone's neck and start extracting blood, and then as soon as they're done and they determine like all right, that's enough blood, they just like give them some gold and it's like all right, go about your way, and then that's where like the comedy kicks in, like what the fuck's going on here? It's like, oh, we're the good pirates, like sure, whatever, it was fun, stupid.
The Robin Hood pirates.
Yeah,
Or there's like you do the thing where like they're like have like a boat like turned upside down, like a rowboat, so they have some. Actually, I guess they don't need air, but that was like how they were like they'd hold a boat above their head to like get away from the sun and like go through the water, and like that was like one of their tricks around the sun.
Oh,
So they have a compartment of the crew that's just humans, so they can like work the ship during the daytime. But yeah, that's Vampires. That was one of those things. I came up with it, and I was like, this has to be a movie already. And then I don't think there was, but I'm pretty sure if you IMDb it, there's probably somebody has made Vampires by now.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it's the crossover genre is huge.
Because that seems like just like something like Asylum Pictures would make. It's like, oh, we got a title and we can make a movie poster. It's like, fuck, get $15 together and make a movie.
Yeah,
5 of that's for bagels. Like, no waste it.
Get some of these guys sober. A few weeks on the set.
We got Crazy Tom. He'll still bite people when he's drunk, right? Just give him some liquor.
Is there any movie studios have a failed pirate movie that we just could go in and raid all their stuff that they've already spent money on?
What was that one that Gina Davis did where they lost like astronomical amounts of money?
Cutthroat Island?
Yeah, I think that was something like that.
Yeah.
Gina Davis pirate movie. Yeah, this sounds like if I was an investor, it's like, yeah, I'm balls deep in this, boys. Let's get going.
Yeah, that was Rennie Harlin's big failure because he was married to her at the time. That was like coming off of Die Hard 2.
Oh, okay.
Which is my least favorite Die Hard movie, but
did you see the last one?
not the. I mean, of the first 3.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, the first 3, that's the weakest one, but it was still a cool premise. But yeah, it's definitely was because like the 1 and 3 are both directed by John McTiernan, so they're top notch.
Yeah.
And then the 4th one's like okay for what it is.
Yeah.
And then the 5th one's fucking terrible.
What's the 4th one? Live Free or Die Hard?
Yep.
And then the 5th one was the one set in Russia?
Yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't really a Die Hard movie. Kind of.
And then they were gonna have a McClane movie like come out like this year, but apparently they just squashed that whole thing. So
I don't think anyone wants to work with Bruce Willis anymore.
no.
I think he's done burn all those fucking bridges.
If you manage to,
Smith goes out.
yeah.
You're an asshole. You can't get along with Kevin Smith. Who the fuck can you get along with? Like,
I mean, he's in a lot of.
this guy again.
He's in a lot of B movie direct to video schlock.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he's 70 some years old too. So.
Oh, he's 70.
I don't think he's 70 yet, but he's like late 60s.
Oh, okay.
I think so. I don't know.
Because like the last movie I saw.
Oh, I mean, it's like him and Stallone are like taking tons of drugs to still be like, yeah, that man's not 70 years old, but he is.
Well, because the last movie I saw him in was like Venice or whatever, and it was a really fucking shitty movie, except for one part of the plot that I found interesting. It was like a blackmail thing where he was a private detective trying to catch the guy that was spray painting this one guy that had a real estate holdings for like a bunch of buildings, like all this weird like profane art on these buildings overnight, and it was like a superhero blowing a homeless guy and all this other shit. And I'm like, this is actually kind of cool. Who came up with this? And it's like, the rest of this movie is complete horse shit. Because it has like John Goodman and the guy from, one of the guys from Silicon Valley, the guys in all the Verizon commercials and shit.
Yeah.
Like, he's in it and a bunch of other people. I'm like, how the fuck they get all these people in this movie, and this is the movie they end up with? This is pretty goddamn
I mean, some
horrible.
people like get free days. They're like, here's 2 days of shooting. Here's $100,000. Like,
It's like, hey, you want $250,000? Yeah, I do actually. Okay, well, this is what you got to do.
I mean,
Yeah.
watch any Mystery Science Theater 3000 thing. And it's like, how the fuck did they get Christopher Lee in this piece of shit? It's like, oh, they had him for half a day, and they used all his footage.
True. Like, just like, yeah.
I like the Riff Tracks has they have they do a lot of movies with Christopher Lee. It's like, when did he do this? I mean, why? It's like, I don't know. He did a lot of movies. I mean, the Christopher Lee. My favorite movie of his is The Wicker Man, the one with Edward Woodward.
Yeah.
Like, that movie was so off the wall and weird. That was definitely like 70s. That's like up there with Zardoz. It's like, oh, this is just a lot of cocaine and sax just hitting the screen.
Yeah, I guess
whose
I need
fever dream was this?
probably actually go back and watch that one, so I've seen the Nicolas Cage fucking version.
No, the one with Edward Woodward. I mean, none of them are great, but
No, it's.
the one from the 70s is pretty cool, just for its. if you-
I'd say it's mostly boring, but once you get to the end, it's kind of satisfying. It's like, well, this is fucked up.
kind of glad it ended this way. Yeah, that's like a 70s. I consider that a 70s nostalgia thing. I don't even know if The Wicker Man is that from the 70s or 80s.
Yeah, I believe it's
Late
70s. Oh, you
70s.
look it up. Huh?
I know
I think it was a DVD I bought just because it had a cool case to it. Because it came in a wood case that you opened up and the DVD was inside.
Well, Rod Stewart tried to buy all the rights to that movie so he could destroy it because his wife was topless in like half of it.
And then he finally realized no one cares what his wife tits look like.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's British guys get weird about weird things.
I finished watching that the Naked Director series.
Oh yeah, I did too. It was really good.
Oh, you think so? Okay.
Yeah, I binge watched it in one day.
And there's the weird part where like, so that at some point, so like all the pornography's censored, but I guess at some point, like everybody just knew like all the pornography is essentially softcore pornography. So like
Yeah.
there's like the genitals were all taped up and they're basically just moving furniture and like that was. But then like he has a thing where like he started filming them actually having sex. Like, at least that's how it's presented. I'm pretty sure other people had the idea of like, oh, let's film actual sex. But they always censored it. And then at some point, like they get a hold of the master tapes, which aren't censored, and like they start selling the uncensored sex tapes like on the underground to the Yakuza, or they don't, but like one of the guy does, so they can get some money to get him out of jail, because he ends up in jail because he shoots a bunch of porn in Hawaii, and he gets in jail for visa issues.
He gets in jail because he's Japanese.
What's the time frame of this movie?
1980 to like 1983 or something.
Okay.
It's like early 1980s, like 1986.
Yeah, it starts at exactly 1980, but then I don't know how far it moves forward from there. But anyways, there's a part where like, so there's like this one girl, she's like working as secretary, and apparently everyone was fine that she like worked in pornography. Like there's kind of a blasé nature that people like had like, oh, you know, my second job is I do pornography, you know, away from my desk job, and it's like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And like nobody like bats
What
an
a
eye
quirky
about.
hobby, yeah.
but then there's a part where like her sex tape gets out, her uncensored sex tape gets out, and then suddenly everybody at work is like writing slut on her desk and stuff like that. It's like, that's a fucking weird turn.
I don't understand how that's an uncensored, because that first one was the tape over the genitals. Like there was no actual sex in that one.
I believe they took it off at some point.
Oh.
I believe at some point it was like, no, we need to make it real, and they just actually have sex with her. I think so.
No, that was the second one.
Oh wait, you're right. Yeah, because there's the part where like they're fucking on the baseball field, and
Yeah.
like the kids are like coming out to play
I-
baseball.
Me and my wife laugh so fucking hard though when it's like he finishes and like, oh, I feel complete now. Then she takes a gun out and kills him. And shit. It's like we'd watch this. It seems like a good movie. And then,
But
no,
it is her that like gets shamed at work, right?
Yeah, it's her that gets shamed at work.
Maybe it was just like they filmed another porn with her later on or something.
I mean, obviously, probably like see more when what you should have seen, but yeah, I don't see why she should be shamed for that. But like the whole like when he has sex with that one woman that has the restaurant or whatever, and like her dead husband that used to work in the railway, and like he's saying bento box for sale while he's railing her, and just like we got every kind of bento box you could want, and then she comes really hard and thanks him. I'm like, what the fuck? And then he was like watching a home video of them fucking while like she's doing something else, like crying in the next room. And then he's like, "This is really beautiful, ma'am," or whatever. She's like, "Thank you, thank you." And then it's like, what the fuck just happened? It's like the woman just basically seems to like have sex with people occasionally, and hopefully they'll wear a husband's hat and outfit and yell bento box for sale while they rail her. Like.
Sounds like a very uniquely Japanese concept.
But then he remakes
this is also his like rebound sex after like leaving his wife when she cheats on him. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and gets out of prison and shit and all that stuff. So yeah. But yeah, it's I found that very cool that he made his second movie that exact experience.
Yeah.
Basically. But
everyone will like this.
And then it's like it's an insanely popular video because for some reason that really resonates with people.
Yeah, I really don't know how much of this is like true.
Well, I looked up it's based on his life or
Yeah.
whatever. But
there's
it didn't really say how
there's
much
like
is
moments of
actually
his life that
factual.
align with the story, but I think the story is mostly fictional. It's like yes, they filmed porn. Yes, they were successful. Yes, he went to jail. That's kind of
Yeah.
that's about it.
But no, it's very good. Like even the theme song catchy in the opening and stuff like that. But yeah, there's a bunch of.
I
stuff.
like that they didn't lift it, but they did it just enough to like maybe avoid being sued. They take some. There's like probably like one of the famous low key things from the Social Next. I think it's called Hand Covered Bruise. They basically just do their version of it, where it's like, is this hand covered bruise? Like, no, it's just slightly off to not be hand covered bruise.
Yeah, just like up tempo a little more.
Well, I mean, their music budget must have been minuscule because they use the same tracks throughout every episode. Of the
I don't know.
whole
Sometimes they
series.
got like full on songs in there. It's like I wouldn't expect that to be in here, but
Yeah, they did have like a couple of '80s songs
Yeah.
in there, but a lot of,
like Walking on Sunshine, I think is in there at some
Oh.
point, and like other '80s songs. There's a bunch of them.
But I mean, anytime it was like a tense moment, it was always the same music,
But yeah,
and some of the lighthearted stuff was the same thing too. So, I mean, I get it. It's not like you can have not like you have like a music producer doing this probably, but at the same time, I mean, change it up a little bit. That was like besides the I did notice too like you said not the dubbing was fine for the most part. There was a few instances where it was off. But the difference between the dubbing and the subtitles in a lot of ways was really interesting because it would talk about oh yeah, we should really get you to buy this English encyclopedia today, and they would just say learning encyclopedia on the other part. I'm like, so how did you get from English to learning? That's pretty much the same amount of time to say English as learning, and and my wife was like, which one's the actual translation? I'm like, I don't fucking know. I'm assuming the subtitles because you can put as much as you want on the screen.
well, I mean, as far as I know, you don't usually it's subtitled and dubbed separately, so you're not just like, oh, we had it subtitled and then we go into dubbing and just read the subtitles. Like
Yeah.
that's not what happens. It's a different process.
Yeah.
Although it seems when you're dubbing live action, there's less it's more of a thing in anime. They do a pretty good job of okay, we're gonna find a way to cram these syllables into this person's mouth talking, and they don't really seem to adhere to that at all in live action, where it's like, no, fuck it, we'll just whatever, he's not talking but sounds coming out, whatever.
Yeah, I noticed that in some dub things. It's because you'll hear it and you'll see either they stop talking and they're expressing something that seems complex to us, or it'll be something simple like the red door or something, and the guy seems to talk for 2 seconds longer. It's like, what kind of word in their language describes that? They have to takes an extra 3 seconds of talking.
It was a very worthwhile show. It was very good. I mean, it's obviously it's not for everybody because all the sex.
It's
and
about
stuff.
pornography.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think it's a really worthwhile watch because there's a lot of cool stuff in it.
Well, and it's also an interesting look at another culture.
Yeah, because I mean, blurring out the genitals and any sexual act here would seem really weird because that's never been the mainstay of porn here.
Well, it was also the weird thing about it wasn't because I know they have a thing with pubic hair, but also it's just like arm hair, like armpit hair is a big thing.
Yeah, me and my wife both found that kind of like a turn off for like, it's like, yeah, that's great, you have armpit hair, now shave it. Like, I don't really get the whole like, hey, we have to be au naturel thing, and it's kind of weird.
Well, no, that was like thing that was her being like super like taboo.
No, I know it was. I'm just saying it's like, yeah, I know why that's taboo there because it seems like anything that makes a woman like individual or appear sexy or herself in any way seems to be repressed. But at the same, I mean, because like I don't even know if anymore legal it used to be like Chinese people and Asian people in general. If you had a daughter, basically you're screwed because all the family possessions would go to whoever she married. It wouldn't stay in the family or whatever. I don't know if that's that way in any of those countries anymore, but that's why nobody ever wanted a daughter there, and why they killed them off by the thousands is because only a son could inherit their father's holdings and take everything that they had from their family. So I don't.
Oh, we're getting completely out of my
Yeah, I
depth. I don't know.
Yeah, all I know is when they had the fake NSA spy satellite photos of China, and they had things labeled weird, and like they had things labeled in Chinese, but then they had translations under them which were horrible. And like there was this huge picture of a pit, like you could from space. It looked like a huge open strip mine, and it said something in Chinese, and then underneath it said the little girl's graveyard or some weird shit like that. But that's a Chinese thing. I don't know if the Japanese had that. Don't know much about Japanese culture except the parts of it I really like, and the rest of it I don't understand.
You don't understand hugging parlors? Why not? I totally understand somebody just paying somebody to hug them for an hour in a bed in different costumes.
Well, one thing I do understand about the Japanese, because I've worked with and around enough of them, they put themselves under a tremendous amount of pressure over things that are seemingly almost irrelevant or like nobody's gonna know, but it's like crazy important to them.
Also, like fueled by competition, both real and imagined, and it's the imagined competition that kills people.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, you live to the ripe old age of 40, and I know they like to smoke. My God, do they like to smoke at work?
Is that still a thing there? Because I know it was in the series.
Well, not in the building, but when you go outside.
No.
There was because I was watching that wrestlers show, and they did some stuff in Japan, and they did the one about the Joshi wrestling, but that's just women's wrestling. And there's this weird thing there about like, I forget, it had a name, but I can't remember what it is, but it was like contributing to like, how to say, like all the young people there like aren't in relationships, or having kids. And there's this thing about how like you go to there's like these guys and women too, whatever, they basically just worship these women and they give them gifts and stuff, and that's like they're satisfying like I have a girlfriend, I just give her gifts, there's no expectations of sex or anything, I just give her gifts and she accepts them and smiles at me, and that's cool, and just walks away, which would never be the case in America. It's like, I gave you something, I need something in return.
Get over here, get on this, get on this dick. The fucking iPhone ain't free.
Well, it's the same thing with the women, because they'll go to boyfriend clubs and they'll pay money to have a man talk to them and give him things for the whole time, and it's like, I don't need a boyfriend because I just pay this guy once a week to come shower me with things or pay attention to me. And it's like the whole culture seems to be disconnected from any kind of physical intimacy, except for just basic family, like, oh, that's my father and mother, and we might have dinner every once in a while. Like, because they're
things I've noticed but don't understand and haven't got into, but yeah, it's just one of those.
Well, because like even the Yakuza games where it's like the girlfriend bars or whatever, where you just go in and give random prostitutes who you never have sex with gifts, and then they're like, "Oh, so much, thank you," and then they leave.
So some new news on the wrestling beat.
Okay.
So AEW is going to have a show in October. I believe October 2nd, on Wednesday, and that's when they're going to be doing shows on TNT from 8 to 10. And now NXT, which is only showing on the WWE Network, is going to have a show on Wednesday from 8 to 10 on USA Network.
Oh, okay.
So they're going to direct competition with AEW.
I guess I forgot USA was still around.
Yeah, that's where Raw and SmackDown are. That's also where you have like Suits and all that shit. Those shows.
Well, I figured USA was just still showing reruns of Walker, Texas Ranger.
No,
Law
USA.
procedurals.
I believe USA is the most watched cable network.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
What the hell is on there? You said Suits, but like, I can't think of one
Man,
USA
it's like,
show.
I mean, White Collar used to be a show on there. They have a bunch of just kind of like vague crime dramas on there that like, well, and yeah, Mr. Robot's on there. That's kind of their big
Oh,
one.
I thought it was over.
I think their final season's coming
Oh,
out.
okay, yeah, that's right.
USA is kind of like a low rent AMC, where it's like they'll create shows similar to AMC's, but without nearly the complexity. Usually you get a flyer like Mr. Robot with like, oh, what's this doing here? Oh, they were willing to produce it. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, they kind of just make shows that's like cool to watch in the background, and then they'll just produce enough of it. So then, like on the weekdays, like they're like from like noon to 5, they'll just show like a full block. Like we're just gonna show half the season of this, of season 2 of the show that we've made 7 seasons of that no one seems to know about, but apparently people watch.
Well, it's just something where NBC, USA, and Sci-Fi are all owned by the same company, right?
Yeah, it's like NBC Universal or whatever.
Okay, so yeah, back when, or like, cause they had the new like show block, or they talked about the new shows on NBC this next year or whatever in the coming television season, and so it was more of a comedic approach where they're like, well, from NBC, the network that brings you crime and police procedurals, comes more crime and police procedurals.
From the network that canceled AP Bio.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I don't know why everybody's getting rid of like their half-hour comedy stuff. Like, it's not.
It's all about growth. If you don't grow, then they cancel it.
Yeah, having a steady audience is not. That's why people get mad. It's like, why'd they cancel that show? Well, the same 20 million people are watching it. Yeah. And none of these actors are getting any cheaper each year, so there you go.
Because that's one thing they're talking about. Dave Meltzer was talking about AEW is like TNT really expect out of wrestling, because like this could be a complete bomb.
Yeah.
But they're saying like, because like WWE's ratings right now, they're like just over 2 million.
Yeah.
Which is not great, but like for where cable TV is right now, they're like the highest watched cable show for the 3 hours they're on every night. Like the only thing that's watched more than that is cable news. So that's good, but it's still like, I mean, 10 million people used to watch that show like 5 years ago. 10 million people used to watch the show. It's kind of a big decline.
Well, I mean, what's the numbers on like back like Walking Dead and Breaking Bad in their prime?
I actually don't know that stuff.
AMC.
Cause like, yeah, I remember like that used to be Walking Dead used to always boast those numbers, like the most watched cable TV series ever. But yeah, I don't know those things.
Well, I mean that's also not true because Happy Days. What Happy Days?
Well, no, it's the cable that make it specific.
Oh, cable. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Network cable.
They'll throw those specific words in there.
Because like 5 million people watching a USA show is like gangbusters.
Yeah.
So-
Well, yeah. Nowadays.
No, yeah. 'Cause nobody has cable. I think 5
Well,
million people just fell asleep with their TV on.
Pretty much. And all that stuff's Nielsen rating, so like, it doesn't even matter if you don't have a Nielsen box, it doesn't matter. But you still have, they track things like, on demand stuff and DVR, all that shit.
I mean, out of 350 million people that live in this country, I'm really surprised that even 5 million people. So, I mean, because you do, just because you're.
I don't want to.
Well, I know you don't want to, but I'm just saying, is like, I can't think of one person I talk to on a regular basis and multiple jobs I had there the last year that actually has cable. Either somebody has a sports package for a dish because they just want to watch NFL or MLB, or they have streaming services, or they have a premium like HBO or Stars or Showtime, and that's it. There's no.
Yeah, cable's a very boomer thing.
Yeah, 'cause nobody was like, "Hey, did you watch a show that was on TNT last night?" Like, that's fucking still around.
Well, if I do, I'd watch it on some on-demand thing
Yeah.
or whatever, because you can get like that stuff like through Amazon and stuff. Like add that, app or whatever. There's ways to get to it.
'Cause- Nathan, do you have cable?
Yeah, but I still operate in one of those monopoly markets where
No.
it's like if you can get internet through Comcast here, and believe me, you'll get enough bandwidth to watch shows for one day, and then they'll start charging. You get a $500 internet bill at the end of the month. We do. There is who's coming here though. The governor changed that. There's a company called Fiber One or Fiberware. I don't know who it is, but it's like fiber optic T1 shit, and they're gonna run it residential. We'll see if that happens. We have the fucking Googleplex over here in Ann Arbor with like 6,000 people working in it. We were supposed to be the first city to get Google Fiber, and that never happened. And then Verizon Fios, there's Fios boxes all around my neighborhood, but they never ran the lines into them because that whole thing died. So yeah, I have cable, but I'm a hostage to it because I don't fucking watch it. But we do watch I do a lot of we'll watch like the murder shows for dinner, and then whatever reality shows are on the History Channel with like guys driving trucks or making knives and nonsense like that. I like how the actual history shows they used to show like 10 years ago, you have to buy an extra thing now to watch those, to watch the actual History Channel history shows instead of their 400th season of Pawn Stars.
They did have a big programming gap, and they had to take the incestuous gun makers off the air.
Oh, that wasn't history. That was what was the other
The
one?
Discovery Channel.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
but they did have their problematic gun show of their own though.
Theirs.
American Gun, I think.
I don't remember that one. I remember they had the sharpshooting contest one.
They don't want you to.
Oh yeah, Top Shot, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I remember shit like Mail Call and all this other stuff that used to be on the History Channel like a long time ago, and now that's all. That's sad. That's not trapped behind a freaking like, hey, pay more money and you can have access to this shit. It's like, yeah, I get that you're.
Well, I mean, basically, what you're getting a lot for it, and it's all on demand, and there's no commercials you can't fast forward through, or most of it is just like the straight up shows. But that's like in the late '80s when the History Channel started, when everyone just called it the Hitler Channel, because you could literally watch 24-hour-a-day documentaries about the Third Reich. Sex in the Reich and the Reich on drugs and disco in the Reich. I mean, they had all kinds of. When the History Channel started, it was kind of like a mono show.
So that's, in other words, they had a bunch of skinheads that really pissed off in the '90s when they diversified their programming.
Well, I mean, I just think that what they did was they ported a lot of. They weren't doing any original content, so the History Channel was doing a lot of BBC stuff that was ported over here. And then they were doing a lot of like old PBS shows, but they'd sort of repackage it or maybe sex up the graphics a little bit. I mean, that's what they used to be. Then they got into original content reality, and that, of course, is like, 10 times the money for half the work. So everything's a reality show. And yeah, and then the History Channel's done, most of theirs are pretty good that I watch.
I mean, Vikings is pretty good.
Yeah, Vikings is good.
And it only really, I'm not sure about later seasons, but really it's only that first season where they like vaguely hint at like the actual history of the Vikings.
Yeah, after that it became Game of Vikings.
It was still good. It just wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't trying to teach you anything after that.
Yeah, you weren't really learning about like why did Hurfgeld build his boat this way like they used to do that, and they just like let's just have everyone fucking kill each other. Why not?
But anyways, my point about wrestling.
Yeah, I don't know how we got here from there.
So Meltzer was talking about, so if on TNT, if AEW comes on, if their first week they only have like 200,000 people watch it, which is a terrible number, but as long as they go up from there, everything's fine.
Yeah.
But also like NXT is my favorite wrestling show right now, and it's going to 2 hours, which they have the talent to do that, presumably. But also because they're going to be on cable, so Vince McMahon has nothing to do with NXT. Like he doesn't even watch it. Like, he barely knows it exists.
This is weird, but
Which is
okay.
why it's great.
Yeah.
But now it's going to be on television, and they're getting paid money to put it on television. So now Vince is probably going to get involved, which will probably be a bad. Well, hopefully the XFL will take too much time out of his way. So.
Are they doing that again?
Yep, next February, as soon as the Super Bowl's over, XFL starts up.
And watch no one care for the second time in a row.
Probably. I don't. There's that league that came up recently that failed this year. The guy who did the documentary about the XFL, the 30 for 30 doc on XFL,
Oh,
he ended up creating his own football league. It was like
Yeah.
the American Alliance Football League or something like that, like the AAF or something.
Yeah.
American Alliance Football, and people like it was like, vaguely successful, but really the problem that happened to it and why it failed is because their big money guy apparently didn't really actually have that much money, and he just cut the hose off, and then that pretty much ruined it.
The old money
Yeah,
pipe.
but that's the thing. It's the same thing with when we were talking about when I was talking to you about Disney Plus and shit before this. We've entered the point of capitalism where you have the companies like the NFL, all the big players that can outspend and outlast anybody trying to enter the market, unless you have something so grand and diverse that you are the only person that can offer it, that you're gonna just peter out because you don't have the shit behind you to actually compete.
Yeah, well, Vince recently sold off a bunch of stock, and he has the money to operate it for probably 3 years at a loss. I don't know if
running it out of other NFL stadiums or where are they running the teams?
I don't know, but I'll give you the team names. I believe there's only 8 teams.
Yeah, I was gonna guess 8 or 10 is probably where they're gonna be
The
starting.
Detroit Convicts.
I don't think they have a two.
The Cincinnati Jews. And
Why Cincinnati?
I just came up with something off the top of my head.
All right, you have the Dallas Renegades. You have the Houston Roughnecks, and it just looks like the Houston Oilers.
Yeah.
You have the LA Wildcats, and Wildcats is the most generic college name in the world, so why not give it to a professional team? You have the New York Guardians, which it looks like a panther or something, or a lion or some shit. I like this one, the St. Louis Battlehawks.
Battlehawk. Okay.
The giant sword with wings.
Yep, looks like an Air Force symbol. You have the Seattle Dragons, the Tampa Bay Vipers, and the DC Defenders. That is your XFL teams.
Chattanooga Ethnic Cleanser.
The Tallahassee beep.
The Tampa Bay Holocaust Deniers.
No, I'm
Well,
just,
the reason I'm throwing things like that in there is because it's interesting because Trump was invested in one of these leagues at one time, wasn't he?
Yeah.
yeah.
And you remember all the kerfuffle over flag saluting the last couple of years in football?
Yeah.
They might try some kind of like Patriot League, where
Oh yeah, yeah. This is
we need to watch those faggots in the NFL.
No.
we salute the flag and this.
this is definitely what this is.
Oh, okay. So I'm not far off base here.
No. Because like they're gonna say like, well, our players don't kneel during the anthem.
We
That's
love God in America.
Yeah, they're definitely gonna play to that audience.
Yeah, why
Because
does it?
there has been a pretty big downturn in the NFL, and if you grab all those people that left the NFL for various reasons, that's still a huge fucking audience.
Oh yeah, those hicks. They'll spend a fortune. Look at NASCAR. It's just like I need to get that new jacket, for $5,000. I haven't sat in a dentist chair in 10 years, but fuck it, woohoo! Gonna
Yeah.
get me a NASCAR jacket.
I still can't believe NASCAR ever got as big as it is. 'Cause Jesus Christ.
Oh,
it's on a downturn right
Practically
now, but
Quite a
I
lit.
think
quite a-
everything's on a downturn just because nobody can spend that kind of fucking money on a regular basis anymore.
No, you gotta spend. Your doctor needs a Cessna. You gotta have priorities in this society.
But yeah, we're back. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see that we're gonna have the new, because back when you had the Monday Night Wars, now we have the Wednesday Night Wars.
Is Vince McMahon gonna be able to keep the wrestling company going at the same time though? If both of them are going on a downturn.
His daughter will take over one of them.
Well, they have
money
people.
wise.
Oh, money wise, it doesn't matter. He's a billionaire.
Well, I know, but I didn't know how much money it took to run the wrestling company versus the XFL.
I mean, like I said, he has his own personal money
Yeah.
wrapped up in the XFL to run it for at a loss for 3 years.
Oh, okay.
Now, at the end of that 3 years, if the investors decide like this is there's no growth here, then they'll just fucking axe it again.
Yep, this ship's a sinking. So
Well, because I mean, it could steal stuff from the NFL. It could. I don't know what the rules
Well,
were like last time.
that was like the weird thing. Like, there's a lot of innovative shit in the XFL that once it fucking died, the NFL just swooped in and stole all the cool shit from the XFL. Like
Well-
all those cameras that like suspended by wires and do the
Oh.
flyby shit. XFL did that. Like, there's a bunch of presentation shit that the XFL did that the NFL just fucking stole as soon as it went under.
But what does the XFL got up their sleeves this time? Or do we have
I
to
really
wait
don't
and
know.
see?
It's like pretty much just like the alternative. Like, our players are going to stand for the national anthem. That's, as far as I know, it's just that kind of like counter bullshit that they're doing. Like, I have no
Because the NFL
investment
still have caps
in-
on celebrations and shit like that, as far as I know.
Because I remember like the big thing in the original XFL was like there was no what was the thing like you wave for safety, like if you're getting a catch, it's like what do you call
Yeah,
that?
kind of.
It's like it's basically like if you like call a safety, I can't remember what the fuck it's called. It's basically if you're receiving a ball in a punt and you wave your hand like
Fair catch or whatever.
yeah, fair catch. Like they're supposed to allow you to catch it and then like that's it. You like kneel and it's like you take the ball right there.
oh yeah, that was to reduce casualties because they didn't have a lineman running at you full blast.
Yeah. So XFL was like, fuck that. We're going to make this awesome. No fair catch rule. And that, that was before all the concussions. Just so.
Well,
We
yeah,
don't have concussions in the XFL.
We have death.
That's gonna be my other. That's gonna be my other question. Now that we have all the protests for NFL, but also the concussion testing and all this stuff with players really showing the wear and tear, are there going to be enough players that can play that are good enough to draw interest that aren't injured and
Probably
that
not.
NFL didn't want? But also, is it going to be a thing with the new regulations that they're going to have to possibly adhere to that's going to draw them?
I imagine they'll probably have some. Because I know there's a lot of like safety stuff in the NFL that the Players Association. Like, there's stuff with the helmets. There's like, we could have safer helmets, but the Player Association kind of like keeps it out. Because, or the NFL does because they look really goofy. It's like, why do you look like fucking Marvin the Martian with all this like airbag shit on your skull.
But you'll actually live to a ripe old age of 65.
Yeah, we want you to die in the ring.
Don't have to pay your
Really, if
pension.
you're not playing football, you don't want to be alive anyway. Did you hear about the Colts quarterback?
No.
Andrew
Andrew
Just
Luck?
he up and resigned.
He did?
Yeah, right after the whatever preseason thing they were doing, he did the game, and then the post conference he was like, "I'm done." 29 years old. He says he's tired of being hurt. I mean, this is a lot of it's speculation. The conference was going on as we started the show, but essentially it sounds like he's tired of being hurt and he's done.
Well, I don't know who's the backup quarterback for Indianapolis.
No idea.
I thought Luck was pretty much their guy, and they didn't really have anybody else. So.
He is. He pretty much is.
I mean, not that Indianapolis has been good the last couple of years, but they haven't been bad.
Oh, and they won a playoff game. They won 2 playoff games last year, right?
Oh, really? Okay. I can't even remember who won the Super Bowl.
one I know
last
for
year.
sure, but yeah.
It was the Patriots.
Oh, that's
Again.
probably why I blocked it out.
yeah,
But no, it's just something where it's like,
it just said he retired. That's fucking crazy.
I
Totally makes sense, but
can't blame him. I mean, it's his fucking life. I wouldn't want to go through it all fucking like. I don't remember what the fuck I had for breakfast yesterday.
He also has an engineering degree from Stanford, and he's actually a really good person in real life. So he's probably like, yeah, I think I can sock away these millions and live just fine. He also just had a kid.
Yeah.
So, I know firsthand, not from my experience, but from my son's, even in high school, what a brutally violent game that could be. And yeah, you get tired of it after a while.
Yeah, good for him. I mean, there's probably a bunch of quarterbacks that literally should have just, throughout the years, that had mediocre performance and just injured themselves more, chasing after glory or more money. So you might as well, when you know you want to go out and you just want to do it on your own terms, might as well, because NFL sure as hell ain't gonna give two shits about you.
well, they have to pretend to now.
Well,
Yeah.
but
They make friendly noises about it.
It's like a lot of WWE stuff. There's they actually have an interesting like wellness policy thing. So if you're caught doing drugs, they will not fire you. Because what usually happens with wrestlers, if they're using drugs, is because things are bad.
Yeah.
And then if you fire them, then they have no recourse to do anything but like kill themselves or harm others.
Or sue you.
Well, that never works.
Yeah. It never works until it does. Then there's
And so so like they actually do have like an adherence to a wellness thing where it's like they won't fire you, just they'll pretend to at least try to get you help so you won't kill yourselves and and represent them badly.
or kill your entire family.
Yeah. But what was it? Otherwise, oh yeah, and then of course WWE just signed new contracts, TV contracts. So SmackDown is going to be on Fox this October.
or Disney.
Yeah, I think. Actually,
Yeah.
I don't know about that. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, it would be.
Yeah. Everything was sold from Fox except Fox News.
Yeah. Okay.
Because Fox News makes buku bucks.
Because we're still, I think we're like wondering about like, because where does Fox Sports fit in? Is that in the news section or is that in the entertainment
I think
department?
it went with the news section, so I don't think that's in it.
Because I said like, wouldn't that be a conflict of interest? Because then you essentially own 100% of sports coverage. Because they already own ESPN.
Like America enforces monopolies anymore.
No, but
I mean, shit, look at Nathan over there. He's got a monopoly in his backyard. The American government doesn't give two shits about it. So,
and then, but yeah, so both the new USA contract, because they still have Raw, the SmackDown and Raw TV contracts are the same. So it's 5 years, $1 billion. So for the next 10 years, they get $2 billion from USA and Fox.
no, that's
Or next,
That's a
what
lot
did I
of-
say? Yeah, next 5 years. Yeah.
yeah, that's enough money to keep the wrestling shows going. I just
Yeah.
because you were talking about before the downturn in the ratings, the downturn in overall attendance, stuff like that. I have no idea what their merch sales are looking like if they're slagging too.
Probably, yeah. Probably.
But at the same time, it's like, do they still make the video games, or
Yeah.
I think they do.
Yep.
Otherwise,
every
I don't-
year.
I don't think they make any. They have their own TV network, so that's good. They don't have to worry about other TV stuff. Other networks doing that. They have their own streaming service, and so it's like they have a lot of content and a lot of coverage and a lot of places to get out there. They still have toys and stuff too, probably.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Those are big. Those are huge.
I mean, they.
Well, that's one of the reasons that they can't be as risque as they used to be,
Oh.
because now it's more family friendly and you can sell toys. And like, if you do like, I guess like Mattel doesn't like intergender wrestling, so that's why women never wrestle men anymore on WWE, because Mattel doesn't like that,
Why does Mattel get to dictate any of this shit? It's
because
not
they
like
pay for advertising
Well, I know,
and they make
but
their
the toy
toys.
market has been slouching for a long time in this country. People like video games and stuff you can't even hold with your hands anymore over physical toys.
Well, I still have standards, damn it.
I mean, it's not like you see them full on grinding on each other on the ring. He goes from the full Nelson to the full penetration, right? One move.
I'll probably pay extra to see that. Yes, and Fox Sports is owned by News Corp. So
Okay.
they are there. So the two profit-making arms of Fox are still there, but everything else that was losing
was-
money for
I
years
thought
is
Fox
gone.
Television was fine. Is
No,
that The
they were
Simpsons?
never profitable.
Oh, really?
No.
Jesus.
I mean, some years, I don't know. There's a chart you can look at. It's like a curve. It's like some years they were, and some years they weren't. And they had real schizophrenic management, though. They would change directions a lot. Because I mean, those are the people that made X-Files and stuff like that. And
Yeah, I mean, Fox has always had landmark shows they've fucked over. I mean, that's been the benchmark, because even Family Guy's made fun of that or whatever. It's like, yeah, we got canceled, but such shows as this all went on to illustrious careers. Oh, wait, they got canceled too. But Fox is still, it's always been known. I mean, yes, X-Files and Firefly and certain shows were highlights in its live-action roster.
Remember, Firefly was canceled.
I know, but it's
in
still
its
a good
first
show.
season.
But at the same time, I mean, makes me worry about, like, The Simpsons is gonna draw to a close at some point. It's just inevitable with the voice cast getting older and dying off and shit. But at the same time, you still got Family Guy, which I haven't watched in years, so I don't give.
Well, they have their animation block is strong, but like, what about? Do you watch any of their live action things?
No, I wasn't talking about that particularly. I was just saying, is like, what's Disney gonna change up with that? Like, now that they own Bob's Burgers, Family Guy, Simpsons.
I don't know if they'll change anything that's working currently. They'll just add new stuff. Because if you like, I know like their almost everything in their film division got canceled except for the Avatar sequel and something else. Oh, the
X-Men movie.
No, those got canceled. The Ford v Ferrari movie.
Oh, well, I was talking about the X-Men New Mutants that comes out in like November or October.
I mean, that was already made, and they seem to be trying to put that they're trying to sweep that under the rug because apparently it's not good. But
well, I kind of figures it's an X-Men movie coming out in October.
but one of the reasons why they just canned everything is because they lost a fuck ton of. They lost like $270 million because of Dark Phoenix.
Oh.
So they just shit canned everything.
As they should, because it looked like a piece of shit.
I watched the Red Letter Media guys. Like, I'm not gonna watch this movie, and they were surprisingly they liked that movie, or they appreciate it for being weird. Because it wasn't necessarily a big spectacle. It was a lot more like personal stuff. But yeah, it probably deserved to tank at the box office. But yeah, the critics didn't like it, so, and the fans didn't like it.
Yeah,
but the Red Letter Media guys liked it. But not really for it being good, for it being different.
Well, yeah, because there's not a lot of superhero movies that are more, like you said, personal and more close about just the team dynamic, not like huge world stakes or whatever at every turn or huge battles. So, especially when the one huge battle in the film was supposedly added last minute to make the film more interesting.
Yeah, they said that looked good, and they were really surprised that was added last minute. I think it was a train scene at night, so usually you can hide a lot of things with special effects when it's at night.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we read a book this week, or for this week.
Yeah.
At the Dashiell Hammett book, Red Harvest.
It's about me collecting used tampons, and really it boils down to just personal hygiene, people. You don't use your tampon sloppily, it'll come back to bite you. Okay.
Toxin. This is of course, this was the prequel to Blue Harvest, which was the original name for Empire Strikes Back.
Yes, exactly. Way ahead of its times, 1929. Kind of ahead of the story.
It was a collection of stories from a magazine, a monthly magazine. So that's why it kind of seems like almost like a television detective show, because like here's one mystery and then it kind of gets wrapped up, but we're still in the same world the next chapter or whatever.
And we're introducing new characters right to the end of the book.
Yep.
I overall, I'll say I enjoyed this. Kind of in its time.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting. Like the main guy is just known as the Continental Operative.
Yeah.
That seemed ahead of its time because they throw the word operative around a lot now. But in 1929, he is the operative for the Continental Detective Agency, which is just a stand-in for Pinkerton, which Dashiell Hammett actually worked for the Pinkerton Detective Agency. He's a weird guy. Joined the army in World War II with emphysema, and he was a communist. He wrote some very popular books and then just quit writing. Once he had enough money, he's like, I'm just going to drink. Yeah, I found out a little bit about Dashiell Hammett. That's kind of those are the highlights. This story is set in Montana, I believe.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, because he talks about like stuff happening in Butte, and the one guy says, "Well, I could do this or be a slave for the Anaconda Corporation." And so I'm assuming this is set in Montana, which seems like the kind of lawless place for stuff like this.
Well, the way the guy reads it, I was almost thinking like a northeastern thing, because it's a place called Personville, but like everyone says like Poisonville, so it sounds like Poisonville, but like that's kind of their accent. This person becomes poison.
Yeah, some people have that weird. There's weird games played with like regional dialects in this book sometimes, but just to set this place up. because Personville in itself is a weird fucking name, and we're going to call it Poisonville because like someone's, you know, because some people have that, I don't know, speech impediment or whatever.
Yeah.
And I like how the Continental Op is an unhealthy man whose life consists of bad breakfast and alcohol. And then when he's really got a Taiwan on, he drinks gin and laudanum, which is laudanum's basically, for our audience, the early form of fentanyl. Is a really powerful drug. It's a painkiller from oldie times. And then we have the you have the rich evil guy. You know, got your Hearst character, the Irish cop.
Yeah, because this whole town's fucked up because the evil rich guy brought all these unsavory elements in to fight a worker strike, and then he gave so much power to them that like what was left over after they like quelled the worker strike was just all these fucking criminals took over everything in the town.
And he has a weird name, Elihu Wilson, spelled with 2 S's. That's the Czar of Poisonville. The guy, he's the rich old man whose son gets killed in like the first opening pages of the book.
Yeah.
And you think it's like going to be like a murder investigation, but he's just, it goes in a lot of different directions. But you had the corrupt Irish cops, the old man, the
bootleggers.
Yeah, the bootleggers, kind of the hoary girl who's just a shyster herself.
Oh, you're talking about
Dinah?
Yeah, Dinah Brand.
Yeah.
I liked her because she kind of seemed like she was always hustling for her money. She's always doing something illicit and weird, but she's working for her money. Like her stockings were always broken because she was hustling around doing things, and also she apparently just had massive muscular legs.
Yeah, she wasn't described as being an attractive woman. It's like she had big shoulders. Probably couldn't slap her around real easy. There was a dialogue like that. Like, oh, okay, this is a throwback. Yeah, everyone in this book is awful. And this whole town is based on manipulation and what you call transactional relationships. Nobody does anything to be anything nice or to help people. It's all based on what's in it for me, which was, I guess, Dashiell Hammett's like treatise on capitalism.
Yeah.
Like, this is what the world of capitalism is, just corrupt places. Criminals and capitalists, and you can't really tell them apart. And
well, in the first story, like he solves the son's murder, but then like because they shot at him, he makes all efforts to get revenge on this whole fucking town and play them against each other.
Yeah, by the time this book's over, this just is a town full of corpses. Because this guy's manipulating people and putting things together, but none of it's subtle, and it should be obvious to anyone who's engaging with him what he's doing. But for some reason, they're not.
Well, the rich guy knows because he ends up like having to pay for this investigation.
Yeah, the rich guy gives him $10,000 to clean up the town, but he thinks he's going to have some say in what the Continental Op does, and it's like, no, you just said clean up the town. You're just paying for it. I'm going to be the guy that's doing it, so fuck you. And yeah.
And then it goes also because the flair of the language, like how the different like dialects and what do you call that, like slang, makes this book really interesting in how they describe things.
Yeah, there's no swearing in this book, and there's no sex. They come really close sometimes, but nobody ever says the F word or anything like that.
Fudge?
No.
I mean, they'll have other like ways to say it. He needs to really tie one off or whatever. Some stuff like that. It's like,
yeah.
Oh, he's about to do drugs or something.
Did he croak her? I mean, did he kill her? Like, yeah. The doctors are called croakers.
Oh, this is what, I can't remember. It's like straight dope and straight dick are like the same. It's like, just give me the information. It's like, no, give me the straight dick. It's like, this is weird.
Straight dick. You don't want the curved one?
No, if I give it to you, it'll be gay dick now.
Yep. So there was no sex or cursing in this, just lots of alcoholism and bad diets. And everyone is described as being fat or paler than a. What was the thing? There was a cool thing that they said this guy was as pale as a glass of milk or something. You know, just
Yeah, there's some really good metaphors and stuff in the book.
yeah. I mean, this is your classic like hard-boiled detective, but a little more intelligent than that. Like, even though he's obviously manipulating people, I think I'm just when I was listening to this, I was like, I was so familiar with this story. Is like, oh, this must be what all those stories are based on, where the guy shows up and he gets beat up and knocked around a little bit, but he's actually just a little bit smarter than everyone else, and he sets them all against each other. And
Well, like I said, like this is the basis for like Yojimbo, the Last Man Standing, that Bruce Willis movie, which is essentially this, and then also fucking the Clint Eastwood
which one?
Fistful of Dollars.
Fistful of Dollars. Yeah, yeah. Those are all. They all draw from this.
Let's just say Yojimbo, because to be honest, the two that came after are straight rip-offs of Yojimbo. But I mean, because Bruce Willis is just ripping off, or not Bruce Willis, but Last Stand's ripping off Yojimbo, just setting it in the Great Depression in Old West Town. And then same thing with Clint Eastwood's Fistful of Dollars, just Old West Town. And same thing, because they even got sued over that movie, didn't they?
Probably, I don't know.
Yeah, those were Sergio Leone movies. Yeah. The only thing I remember about Last Man Standing was cool was Bruce Willis used 245.
Yeah.
And he would constantly be reloading them, like, you know, really quick.
And then he'd go fuck Judd Apatow's wife in between scenes.
Yeah. Just take turns, yeah. But yeah, overall, this was a cool book.
There's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of different stories. Like the first like episode is like a murder mystery, and then you have like the fight episode, and then you have like another murder mystery. And then Kiko was at Noonan. That was like the corrupt cop, and like his brother dies for some reason.
Yeah, and it starts a gang war, but then, you know, everyone kind of knew why his brother really died, including him, but he was just sort of,
Like,
you know,
it became an excuse to like.
yeah, he wanted to
people
save face and kill people, and it's like, this will be the reason. And the characterization in the reading, the guy even had an Irish accent. Is like, oh, okay, it's, all these stereotypes are here, and they exist for a reason. So.
I'd say I felt more modern than I expected it to be, but also it's still of its time.
Yeah, I mean, it did talk about like real, like the union they talked about in this, the Wobblies. Like, that's a real group. That the IWW, the International Workers World, they're still around.
Huh.
I mean, they're crazy, but they're, you know, they basically they're the union that doesn't want capitalism. We get their flyers sometimes at work. Someone's always trying to counter organize, and they'll be passing out. I've met real communists at work before, passing out leaflets. It's like, you shouldn't be working for these people. You should own this. It's like, this place is a dump. Wouldn't want to own this. Thanks. As a matter of fact, the model shop I go to used to be their Michigan headquarters for the IWW. They were the first. You ever heard the term wildcat strike?
No.
Yeah,
That's when you go on strike against the wishes of your international leadership. It's just a local union strike. They called them wildcatters. Those got real violent in the 20s and 30s. You didn't have any, sanctioning of it. You were just doing it as a local group, and that's when they'd bring in the headbangers and start shooting into crowds and stuff. But yeah, the IWW was they were the ones who coined that term wildcatter, because they basically said, well, we're going to deal with our local units here on the ground, and this is what we're doing, and we're just those got crazy. A lot of people died over that shit. That was another thing in this book. Speaking of dying, his death was treated casually, almost offhand. Like, yeah, he's dead. It's like, he is. He died right in front of him. Like, yeah, I saw this red dot appear under his eye. It meant this guy got shot in the face. And then he went down. So I grabbed this gun and moved along. It's like, wait a minute, somebody just got shot to death.
Yeah, there was like some guy had an axe and is like he carried his axe to the front door and he then no longer had his axe or his life or something like that.
Yeah. A lot of... It's like, where'd this guy grow up?
Like at the last part, they're just like they're really like firebombing or grenading each other and some shit.
Yeah, they were like, it sounded like a Molotov cocktail, but they were packed in sawdust. And it was basically it sounded to me like it was a bottle, like a glass bottle or a jar with a quarter stick of dynamite in it and a bunch of nails and screws. And you just lit it and threw it in a building. And of course, that's a improvised grenade. And it's like, yeah, they threw a jar of hell in there and nobody came out. You know? It's like 20 or 30 people dead.
Yeah, imagine all the glass nails and everything else flying everywhere.
Fucking Jesus. There was like some part where like they were getting attacked and they just had like a duffel bag full of money and like in order to get away they just started like just handing out the money.
Oh yeah, well yeah, because there was one time. Remember when they had to break the guys out of jail, like Whispers?
Yeah.
He's in jail. So what do? Well, they backed up a truck with a bunch of dynamite in it, like blew out the side of the building, and now he's out of jail. And I was thinking to myself, what? Oh, that means he's free? Like, well, we can't get him. He's out of jail, so screw it. We'll go do other things. And then when they were doing that, the other gang robbed the bank. But they were really robbing the bank to hurt the rich guy because it was his bank, so they started handing out money so they could get away. Yeah, it was something. There was always like 3 levels of stuff going on here. And most of it was crazy.
And mostly isn't he called Continental Op because he's always going into places with like anonymous identities and like he's always getting a different name. So
yeah, because he never has a name in the book, but he always does like, I'm checked into this hotel under the name of this, or I'm checked into that hotel under that name. And
what's your name, boy? And it's like Jack DeVries.
Yeah, this guy was in I forget what other books he was in.
Yeah, it's because he's in a series of stories that.
Yeah.
Because there's that and whoever the guy's in the Maltese Falcon, I can't remember his name because that was kind of his 2 main characters.
Right.
I'm not sure if Maltese Falcon is a book or just a screenplay. I couldn't remember.
I don't know. I know it was another book of his, or I know it was a story of his. Let me see. Oh yeah, he was married to Lillian Hellman. That's right.
Who's that?
He was a famous playwright of her time, and they used to just have their whole relationship was described as a drinking contest. It was terrible for both of them. Yeah, Sam Spade.
Okay, yeah.
Was his other main character, and that was in the Maltese Falcon. That was a novel. But it was one of those. It was another serialized one, like this one, that was in the Black Mask Mystery Magazine. And what was the other big one? The Thin Man. That was like the husband and wife detective team. So yeah, he had a few different things. But all in all, this was
Was the Thin Man?
Everyone should have to read this.
Was the Thin
Looks
Man?
like.
Oh, sorry. Was the Thin Man the prequel to Fat Man and Jake?
No, I don't know what the origin of the name was, but yeah, that's this is one of those books that like people should have to read to like this is one way to structure a story. It's kind of interesting. But it's almost like a time capsule reading. Like it's very of its time.
Yeah. Well, I didn't even realize it was like 1920s, so I got to the copyright. I figured it was like the 50s or something. And it's like, oh, no. Copyright 1929 or something like that. So,
yeah, no,
shit, this is before World War II.
Yeah, this is 15 years before. Well, for us.
Well, I guess also this would be the Roaring 20s, so plenty of bank robberies and shit like that going on.
Yeah, this was kind of in that Bonnie and Clyde era of crime where mass communication wasn't. because by the 50s, like if you broke a guy out of a jail, even in an isolated place with a bunch of dynamite, you'd have the National Guard in that city. Like, so this was, and then we're talking about bootlegging too. Like that was still a crime back then.
I like there's parts like you think about like communications. There's points where like you just give a kid a dime and tell him to go like find somebody and yell at them at the window to get them, and like that's how you called somebody.
Yeah.
If they didn't have like a phone near them.
Yeah, there was no communication. That was the other thing too. Like the boss of the Continental Detective Agency was just known as the Old Man. Like this guy, the Continental Op went out and did things, but then he had to file reports that were bogus. Because he couldn't make an official report about like everything he did here. This was technically what he was hired to do, but he wasn't supposed to do it this way. He was supposed to be done through lawful means, not by turning the local government, the police, and all the local crime figures having them murder each other. That wasn't really sanctioned, but they know he does this stuff anyway. So that's it's a weird like duplicity. So. Yeah, it's a good book. Interesting story. I'm glad I read it. I hadn't heard of this one before. I'd heard of Sam Spade and the Maltese Falcon, of course, because that's a movie. But
well, I didn't read your book because I couldn't find a copy. So read my own.
We both listened to the audiobook because it was cheaper than the actual.
Yeah, the audiobook was $7 and the like $13 to buy it on Kindle. It's like, well, I'll listen to the voice stylings of whoever.
I think it's only like 6 hours long or 8 hours long.
Yeah, it's not a very, very long. Because I would have read it. Normally I read these so I can, get everything out of it. But I'm actually kind of glad I listened to this one because I felt like, it was interesting, just fun to listen to. Like,
yeah, that guy has like a really gravelly, smoky voice, so he did a pretty good job. Because like I read some reviews, they seemed to say like the recording was poor, but I couldn't tell.
Yeah, it wasn't. That's not an Audible. That was a different company that did this one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't notice any problems.
Oh, it's probably one of those audiobook snobs putting a review up. It's like you can tell the tremble in his voice.
Well, yeah, usually when I'm listening to audiobooks, I'm running Power Tools or something. So, yeah, the recording was great. It was like shouted to me over a bandsaw, so I'm fine.
No, still haven't. I mean, I've tried. I think Colin recommended an audiobook for me to read, and not read. I don't know why everybody. Do you guys say read when you say audiobook? I mean, like.
Yeah.
You don't. I mean, you don't
or
say.
I just
listen.
refer to it as a book.
Yeah, it's just kind of forced a habit since I've never really done a lot of other media consumption for books in different ways, but it's just not for me. I just get really distracted and feel like I just like, oh, okay, I'll fall asleep soon. It's not how I would interpret it, and it's way more interesting to read it because you can kind of imagine something and put your own spin on it in a way that maybe you wouldn't find if somebody just read it to you.
I mean, yeah. I mean, that's how it's different for me, but that's a downside for you.
I mean, you guys at least stuff you're doing though too while you're.
Yeah, I'm usually doing something. Like if it's a monotonous task that doesn't require like effort on my part, it's like I get this cool story and I'm doing this thing. It's getting it's like work's getting done both ways.
Because to me, like I'll listen to a podcast or listen to music while I'm painting or playing a monotonous video game. But even then, there's like gaps where I'm like, what song just played? What was I listening to?
Yeah.
And so it's like, to me, that kind of, it's like, I don't know if I could read a book that way because I don't know if I'd have to go back or not.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the opposite way for me. Like I can concentrate if it's being read, and then like if I read a book, I'll have to like read the same 15 pages at the same time because like if it inspires my mind in a way, then I start to like leave the fiction of the book and go into my own fiction.
Yeah.
And then realize I haven't been reading the fucking book for the last 20 pages. It's like, oh, I went into my fantasy world. So a book being read to me keeps me out of my fantasy world. And it's why I can pay attention and I can kind of build things just as well as I would if I was reading it. And probably it's more constructed. It's a more constructive process if I'm listening to audiobook, and it's more likely that I'll finish it and remember things from it.
Yeah.
Because there's been sometimes where like we reviewed a book, you read it, I listened to it, and then like sometimes I recall more than you, But
Yeah.
that might be more. I might be recalling things that were more of performance rather than like descriptions or things like that.
Yeah, I tend to. If I read a book, I have a lot of details, but sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, I did miss the point of the story. I've done that. It's like, oh, the minutia about the details on how they maintain the spaceship was fascinating. What was the point of the story? Um, sometimes my mind works that way, but sometimes if it's read to me, and especially if I do a lot of monotonous things or repetitive things, and also I build a lot of models listening to things, because building models is fun, but it doesn't take my full cognitive ability to read instructions and put them together. So if something's read to me, like I won't, maybe I'll miss some of the minutia, but I do understand. It's like, oh, this was a moral story about love, not about, warp drive maintenance. For some reason, if I read that, I just go down that rabbit hole of, oh yeah, space time continuum. Yeah. So,
But yeah, do what you do. You don't have to.
No,
Yeah.
I know. It's just I think I might lean on to audiobooks at some point if there's like if we get like a book of the month or whatever and it's like really dry to read and I have to get through it, I might just buy the audiobook version because then I don't have to struggle to read it like I did with Neuromancer, where I'm like, oh god, I don't want to read anymore.
Well, that's the reason I read that one, because I heard so many terrible things about the audiobook. It's like, oh well, I'm just better off just reading it.
But at the same time, I mean, I don't know if you. I know probably in the notes and stuff like that we talked about like the next book and stuff like that. But can I submit one to?
Yeah, that's what the notes are there for.
No, I know. I didn't. Well, because you guys read a lot more different things than I would ever really. I pretty much stick to subgenres of like sci-fi, history.
Well, I mean, I suggested 2 books. Nathan won, so it's probably your
Okay.
turn.
Yeah. Well, because it's something where it's like, yeah, I'll get around to it. I'll probably whenever you get me the next show notes, I'll put it on there.
Okay.
I mean, I guess you just reset me this one, but I can do that too. So, but no, I mean, can I
so
talk?
what's the book?
Devil in the White City.
Oh,
Oh.
yeah, I read that.
Okay. I guess I didn't know if either of you guys had actually.
Yeah, you got me to read
Okay.
that. So, have you ever read it, Nathan?
That's about the serial killer at the World's Fair.
Yeah.
I'll probably reread it, but I think I've read it.
All right, let's talk about it right now. If we've all read it.
Or do you want to talk about one of his other books, like his most recent one, where it's the
Actually,
the
we
one
should,
about Hitler,
we should. Which one's about Hitler? Oh wait, Hitler. Oh wait.
Beast in the Garden or whatever,
Yeah.
or something like
Oh,
that.
Beasts in the Garden. Oh yeah, that's about the U.S. ambassador's daughter.
Yeah, and his,
Yeah,
his
I've
daughter
read
and his
that.
family in Germany are the brown shirts.
Yes, I have that one. That's a good one.
Let's probably think of, or how about East of Eden? It's a fucking huge book.
Is that a Michener book?
No, it's a guy who did like Grapes of Wrath and Mice and Men.
Oh,
Oh.
Steinbeck.
Yeah, it's a
Okay.
1,000-page book. Fucking wonderful book, but it's I mean, it's definitely not an easy read as far as time. But it's
What's another book we want to do? You ever been down the Cormac McCarthy rabbit holes?
I have
think
not.
so.
Nah, you got No Country for Old Men's very good.
Okay, yeah, I think I actually have that book. I'll have to see where the hell it's at though. I think I bought the novelization of the movie probably more than like the literal book, but
Well, we'll figure that out. After
You always suggest like Blood Meridian, and that's like one of his that it hasn't been adapted to anything. Is I was curious about it.
Yeah, I mean it's just a long, protracted description of murder by a mentally ill person. I mean, Cormac McCarthy is like, I don't even know how to describe it. Like, he's not writing like Shakespeare because he's writing in plain dialogue, but he is writing like Shakespeare. Like, it's just the way the stories are constructed and the way people talk. It's like completely, because you've both seen No Country for Old Men, right? The movie.
Yeah.
Okay, and the dialogue in that movie is amazing and spare, but also it's like, oh, the people really talk this way. Even the crazy guy doesn't say the killer guy doesn't say a whole lot, but everyone's motivations are. It's like an extreme situation, but it's like, yeah, I could see people doing that, and it's like a lot of his books are that way, except The Road. The Road's really weird.
oh, you ever heard an author like Harry S. Turtledove or whatever?
Yeah, he writes alternate history stuff.
Yeah, have you ever read the Guns of the South one where the South has AK-47s?
Yeah, I read that a long time ago.
Kyle,
The
you read
South
that?
African time travelers trying
Yeah.
to find apartheid.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's probably like the best piece of literature to exist, but it's really interesting to read.
Oh, a quick aside while we're on books. I heard that there was Amazon casting for Wheel of Time series, because I didn't know they were doing the Wheel of Time series. Like,
Yeah.
are they gonna do Wheel of Time and Lord of the Rings at the same time? And do those two universes aren't they very similar or is that just
I would
fantasy?
say they're similar, except they're both fantasy universes and like magic exists in them.
Okay, is that the only
yeah.
similarities? Okay.
I mean, they're hugely dense and complex worlds with a lot of things going on.
Isn't the Wheel of Time?
Remember, Wheel of Time, the guy died before he finished the series.
What's the Wheel of Time one? Because I don't remember.
Neil Jordan, is that his name?
Yeah.
You ever heard of him? I don't know. You've read them all, Nathan. You give Andrew a synopsis of the Wheel of Time.
Oh my god, I don't even know how to start. Well, in the first novel, what's it called? Eye of the World.
Where does Belgeriad fit into this?
That's David Eddings. That's
Oh,
another
okay.
fantasy novel, kind of written in. What would I call that? Like, there were books written in the '90s, but they were written like by a guy who was probably a writer in his prime in the '60s, so they're kind of written that way. But we're not talking. Or we're talking about the Wheel of Time. I don't know how to synopsis because it's like 15 books. The first 3 are awesome. But yeah, in Eye of the World, basically there's magic, and there's male magic and female magic, and the magic users are called Aes Sedai, I think is how you pronounce it. I don't know. Fantasy writers jam a bunch of letters together. But anyway, the male side of magic got tainted by evil because the male magicians were trying to do stuff that was way too powerful, and so all male magicians that are born are eventually go insane because of the taint in the magic. But that's caused imbalance in magic, and the whole world is kind of a mess as a result of it. So they find the one kid in a village somewhere, of course, in the Shire, or whatever. And it's like, oh, this might be the guy who could restore balance to, magic being tainted on one side. So, yeah, it's kind of like the best elements of Lord of the Rings and Star Wars all thrown together. But there's a lot of cool, very original stuff in it. The action, a lot of the characters, and how the magicians and magic works and stuff. It's a well thought out system. But they're door stopper books. I mean, some of those books are like 1,500 pages and stuff. But yeah, the first 3 are awesome. Read Eye of the World, and if you don't like it, then don't waste your time reading the rest of them.
Well, I think you made fantasy just suggestions to me before, and I could just never really get into it because I still have the Belgeriad somewhere around here. I read the first 10 pages and never go. But anything, it's is there a laser in it? Cool, I'll read the whole thing front to back.
Well, to be honest with you, I kind of got that way myself. I don't read fantasy anymore, and I haven't read fantasy in probably 10 years or more. I just can't do it. And I can read science fiction, but just pure fantasy, I sort of moved on from that. Like, it doesn't hold my attention.
Would you categorize Game of Thrones as fantasy, or is that a little bit off of that?
Game of Thrones, I would I see that as that's political intrigue with elements of magic.
Okay.
But magic doesn't really define every interaction in the story. So yeah, I see Game of Thrones as more along the lines with what was that? That's a very BBC feel to it with a lot of American production values.
Yeah.
What was that one they did with John Hurt? Was it Julius Caesar or what? Yeah, it's just like a political intrigue set in the Middle Ages. That's what I see Game of Thrones as.
Okay.
Because to sit down and read those books is daunting. They're very well written and they're fun to read, but they are door stoppers. Set aside a few months. It's nothing like those 45-hour long audiobooks and stuff.
Because my only suggestions is was Seven Eves. I wanted to get to that sometime because I just wanted to talk about it, but I'm like forgetting more every day, and also that book's really, really fucking long, so I didn't want to subject you to that necessarily.
Well, how long is long?
I think it says it's 900 pages or something.
Yeah, it might take me. Well, depending on if I even find it interesting enough to read quickly.
What about Dune?
um,
880.
At some point, I might actually read the book. I have no idea if I'll watch the remake coming out because I've hated everything of Dune so far that I've ever watched or tried to be a part of.
Well, because I had some book suggestions that. So I have Endurance: Shackleton's Incredible Voyage by Alfred Lansing, which that's a true story about this ship that gets lost in like Antarctica or some shit like that. I can't remember. Somewhere it's cold.
Yeah.
And it's a harrowing journey or whatever, where a bunch of bad shit happens. So I've been meaning to read that book. I just haven't yet. And the other ones I've been hearing things about the Jurassic Park: The Lost World, the novel. Which have you read it? Because I never have.
I read half of it in middle school. I don't know if I remember any of it
Okay.
anymore.
Because I like heard interesting about like that. Because like I watched the movie and I assumed that was based on the book, but I hear the book's like completely fucking different from the
I don't
movie.
even. I fucking might still have the trade paperback from like. I have to go through my fucking attic because I'm pretty sure I still have some of that shit still in my attic along with Dog Country for Old Men.
Because I hear like that's essentially just like a horror movie with dinosaurs in that book.
Okay.
But
I remember it being different from the movie in some ways. It was more interesting, but also I was in middle school, but I didn't really have an attention span to read anything. So I really don't know if I really remember enough to really paint a picture for you.
like those are my current suggestions. We don't have to hash it out right now on the show unless you want to.
Well, let's move on to Gerald's Game.
Okay.
This was our. Now we are in what are we? Netflix original movie.
Netflix original movies, because I never take any time to watch any Netflix original movies, so we're taking time now, and it doesn't cost anything extra.
Yep, that's what's nice about it. So this 2017, kind of like, what would you call this? Emotional horror movie.
Yeah. It
Based
seems
on-
like a stage play turned into a horror movie.
Yeah, it's based on a Stephen King novel that I never read.
What was? Did you ever catch the name of the actual novel that this is based on?
Gerald's Game.
Oh, is it called? Okay, I thought it was something different.
I thought maybe it was more of like a novella or a short story more than an actual novel. But
There were 3 books that Stephen King came out with. 2 of them with women in trouble that involved eclipses. One was the one. Remember Kathy Bates did it?
Misery.
No.
It's Dolores Claiborne.
Yeah, where they all had like British sounding accents. They have those Nantucket accents.
Oh.
Because you watch the movie, it's like, is this in England? And then they're like off the coast of New England somewhere. And that was about a woman accused of murder, but it had something to do with an eclipse. And then this movie was a woman in trouble, and it had something to do with an eclipse.
Also, didn't Dolores Claiborne, did she like tie her husband to a bed and like torture him?
No, you're thinking about Misery.
Oh, is that
Where-
Misery? Okay.
Author, where James Caan, where she breaks his ankle with a sledgehammer
Yeah.
on a board. Yeah, that was the first Kathy Bates Stephen King movie. But
Oh, okay. I didn't know there's multiple.
the second one, yeah. Well, the Dolores Claiborne one is the one where they have the weird they call them high tide accents. To us, they sound like British accents. These people are born in America, but they live in these islands. So everyone in the movie has this weird and indecipherable accent. It's like, why do these people sound like this? So that's Dolores Claiborne. This is Gerald's Game, which is it kind of looked like a TV movie at first. It had a good cast in it.
Yeah.
It had Bruce Greenwood, who plays everything, multi-character actor. If you want a guy who's kind of serious,
Played Commander Pike.
yeah, Commander
in the
Pike,
new Star Trek series or movie series.
John F. Kennedy in 13 Days. A lot of I mean, you guys everywhere.
He was in what's that? It was an HBO show called something from. It was like Joe from Cincinnati. It was a fucking weird ass show.
Yeah. and then his wife in this movie is played by Carla Gugino, who really she is like the best actress I've in this. She really holds this movie together, and she has to because she's in 90% of the movie. All the other characters and actors in this movie are in it for like 10 minutes tops.
Well, it was like the flashback sequences, but
Yeah.
Or hallucinations, or anything.
But essentially, I mean, like the point of the story, what happens is it's an older man married to a younger woman, and they're trying to spice up their sex life, so they go to a vacation place, and he takes a Viagra and then handcuffs her to a bed because they're doing like this weird role playing, and then he has a heart attack and dies, and she's handcuffed to a bed. And it's I forget how it's like so well made she can't rip the post down and she can't fit the handcuffs over the top. So.
I like to do they just have her escape from it and then just like cut back. It's like, no, that's not happening.
Yeah. They play with they do a lot of like cuts in this where it's like, oh, that's what's going on. Nope, guess not. You got to use blood to lubricate your wrist. So, so this woman's handcuffed to a bed, and essentially, how long could she live before she died? Like 3 days?
Well, yeah, they just said 3 days without water or whatever.
Yeah.
You can actually live longer, but,
Yeah, but would you want to?
Because, like, she seems to be already dehydrated and hallucinating, like, 6 hours in.
Yeah. Stray dogs coming in and tearing pieces off Gerald. It's going to start working on her because that's really the driving thing, is not that she's going to die of natural causes. Eventually that dog's just going to start eating you.
Yeah, that's like, because I heard, because this got recommended from Red Letter Media by Jay, so I was like, oh, well, something horrible and fucked up is going to happen. So I was just assuming that like the dog was going to start eating her from the feet up, and that was going to be the horrible thing, and they're going to force us to watch.
Actually, no. And so this woman, essentially, she starts flashing back to and having cutaways to her childhood and her growing up, and basically, and then this weird disfigured guy shows up who you think is Death in the first time you see him.
Yeah, because she's hallucinating.
Yeah,
and then the whole big twist at the end, I guess we'll ruin it.
Yeah,
like you think I mean, all this shit is not real because she's hallucinating, and then you get to the end, it's like, oh, fuck that dude, that was like the most obvious thing that was not real. He's totally real.
He was like the tall man in Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
That actor genuinely looks that weird. I mean, they put makeup on him, make him look a little stranger. He's a pretty strange looking dude.
No, I heard some like connection that he had a bag of bones, and isn't there a Stephen King story called Bag of Bones? Is that the guy from that?
Yes.
Okay.
All Stephen King books have a weird connection. Somehow, sometimes. I mean, there's names and things are. I mean, half of them happened in Castle Rock, so that's always a connection. But
I mean, like there were some accoutrements that were added onto him, where like obviously he didn't have like eclipses in his eyes like that.
Yeah, that probably wasn't real. Or if it was really strange. But yeah, this was and it like there's all kinds of weird stuff going on. Then she flashes back to her childhood, and which is almost the worst part of the story.
Yeah,
because I mean, there's something like her dad seems like a nice guy, and he has a nickname for her, Mouse, and all this stuff, and she's vacationing with her family, and it's like, well, what, you're waiting to see what terrible thing happens because she doesn't want to go on the boat, and the family goes on the boat, and you're like, oh, okay, her family's going to die in this boat accident. It's like you always try to second guess, like, well, what could be happening? What traumatized this woman so much as a child that she grew up to be this adult who's ultimately this unhappy person? And then it turns out, oh no, her dad's a sicko, and and they're watching a solar eclipse, and she's sitting on his lap and he's masturbating.
Yeah,
and they pretty much filmed it. And I was watching this like, oh, this is fucked up. Like, I'll take the moon guy and the dog eating people. This is more weird. And then an eclipse is happening at the same time. So you have weird red fantasy looking lighting and all this stuff.
Yeah,
And,
everything's just bathed in red darkness.
yeah. But I'd have to say overall, like my impression of this movie is like the production values were okay, but the lady who was the lead actress did an amazing job. And in the end, it had one of those kind of classic Stephen King Stand By Me endings where things sort of tied up and it's like, well, I accept the horror that is my life. Oh, and I'm going to go see this big creep, who's been being sentenced to death.
And he sees her, and he just like, he hasn't said a word to anybody. And the first thing he says, like, "You're not real. You're made of moonlight." And he breaks out of his cuffs and just stands there.
Yeah, it's
like, well, that's frightening.
Yeah, that's
because like this guy was just going around like digging up graves, and he started killing people at some point. And...
yeah, this guy was every kind of nuts you could imagine.
So that's why he had a bag of bones.
Yeah, and like some weird lantern. I mean, he actually looked like Death from like an old French cartoon or something. Like it was. So you did not think he was real. Then it turns out he was the only thing that was real, other than the horror that was her life.
And the dog, and her dead husband.
And her dead husband. That was all real. But the thing that looked the least real was actually like, oh, not only real, but a real threat.
So Andrew said he did not like this movie. When did you stop watching and why?
Sorry. Probably around the time, like just after the dog enters the picture and stuff like that. I was just tired and I just didn't care enough about the movie to continue it. Because I already kind of read a synopsis of it and I kind of already knew about it and what the plot entailed. So I'm like, I know where this is going and I don't think there's going to be any surprises. So yeah, I guess I didn't really understand that there'd be a lot of weird fucking like incest bullshit and a weird moon face or moon-eyed guy fucking in the thing. I think it would have made it more interesting, but ultimately I think I would have been like, yep, the story of always keep the key to the handcuffs next to you so you don't almost die on a bed. Like, I'm still, because I was, or debatable at that point, because when I read the synopsis, it was like, a lot of people think the dog is her hallucinating and stuff like that. Oh no, that's real. And it's like, well, that's really weird. How the fuck did a dog get into the goddamn house that was supposedly sealed up and shit?
Well, I think like a window was open or some door was open, and like she had fed the dog because they first find the dog like eating a corpse on the road, and like he almost hits the dog, and then she goes to like feed him the meat. So now he's around because the dog's expecting food around there. So then they explain everything. He's like, it's like, I planned this day perfectly so nobody would be around to hear you scream when we have sex. And it's like,
yeah.
And plus, like, the breaking down of, like, that's why she's attracted to older men, because she finds it sexual that her dad masturbated while she sat in his lap or whatever during the solar eclipse and shit like that. And it's like,
I don't know if she found it sexy. I think that was the only way. That was just what she thought love was.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why she's attracted to, like, older men or whatever, and that's her relationship is based on with her husband and stuff. So, I don't know. Stephen King movies are really hit and miss for me. Like, I really just rather read the book. Like,
yeah.
The It movies has pretty much been the one thing that's actually been good about his movie franchise thing. Otherwise, everything else has been pretty much benchmark horrible. So it's, I mean
some of his TV productions are good, and The Shining, but The Shining was very different from the book. So,
I guess I never read the book for The Shining. Interested to see what the sequel is going to be like. But
yeah, is that Dr. Sleep? Is that what is it?
Yep,
Just got its rating.
Yeah, rated R.
R-rated.
Are you more excited now?
Well, I was disturbing and horrible as that book was. Yeah, it should be pretty good. Because that book kind of starts out slow, and then once you find out what's going on and who these people, because it only relates to The Shining in that like that shining ability is important, but doesn't really like call back or explain a whole lot. But the things that they introduce in Dr. Sleep are like, oh, these people are horrifying. You know, and it's actually a curse to be able to shine. It's not a good thing because there's things that come around and feed on you, and they're awful. And so, yeah, I won't say any more. But it's pretty. It's I enjoyed the book. I read it in 3 nights. So
Yeah, I had no expectation for this movie except for like Jay from Red Letter Media recommended it, and I was like, oh, it's a Netflix movie, so I guess it's easily accessible. But I just still never bothered to watch it. So that's why I created the series to bother to watch Netflix
Well,
movies.
because also on there is a Thomas Jane Stephen King movie, 1922, that pops up right before that as a Netflix original.
Huh.
And I at one point wanted to see that. I still might watch it just because it seems more up my alley than this.
But didn't you? What did they have, that Castle Rock TV show? Didn't you like that on Hulu?
I've only watched half of it.
Oh,
It was good. I didn't finish it.
I didn't even start it. I was kind of interested in it, then I didn't hear great things about it when it came out, and then I just never came back to it.
I thought it was interesting up to the halfway point. I think there's like 4 or 5 episodes left I haven't touched. My wife finished it and she thought it was good. So, but I don't know what her standards are compared to everybody else this year. So, I mean, she likes watching America's Next Top Model and stupid shit like that. So I don't know.
Well, I'm gonna. So for the next, or do we have anything more to say about Gerald's Game?
no, it's serviceable. Great actress. Kind of looks like a made-for-TV movie.
Yeah, I love like when they do like, it's just them, but they're like, it's basically like voices in her head, and like I love how they're just like talking to her. She's basically explaining her own logic to herself, which I really liked.
Yeah.
And you don't know, like, because it's Stephen King, you don't know. It was like, well, is this actually happening or not? Is this all in her head? Is this hallucination? And I like the push and pull of like, is this real or not, or what is real and what's metaphorical and all that.
Yeah, and it was. It was a good movie. Started out kind of slow. It did keep my attention. I could tell they didn't spend a fortune on it though. They didn't really need to.
No.
It was like it didn't require it, but it just struck me as
Like I said, it was like almost like a stage play. So it's like
Yeah.
here's the one room we're gonna do this entire thing in.
did have a satisfying sort of upbeat ending.
Well, I do have a recommendation for the next movie if you guys.
Oh, I was gonna make you guys choose between 2.
Oh, well, what are they?
I was gonna make, it was either Triple Frontier or
Yeah,
Roma.
Affleck. And what's the other one?
Roma. That's the you remember the dude that directed Gravity and Children of Men? He did a movie for Netflix.
Oh, okay.
And I never
Iran.
and I never watched it. And
Oh, okay.
this would be an excuse to watch it. And then Triple Frontier is that one with Ben Affleck and some other guys.
Yeah, I watched that one. That was decent.
Okay.
Because
I have not seen Roma, but it was nominated for an Academy Award. So,
I
what do you
think
guys
the,
think?
or the one I was gonna talk, it was like Ghost Protocol or Ghost Wars. It's like this invisible enemy in like fucking Serbia.
Oh yeah, I think I. Vaguely
Oh yeah, I watched that. What's that called? Because Bruce Greenwood's in that too, right?
I think so. Not sure.
What's it called? Damn it!
I can't think of the fucking name now.
Because I remember thinking this is like a failed video game story.
Well, it was just interesting in like the special effects. Like, hey, if you had just a bunch of invisible enemies, how would you make this kind of like tense and thrilling type of movie? I think it was actually pretty decent for what it was.
Spectral.
Spectral, okay.
Yep. That's actually a cool movie. I mean, it was like I said, it seemed at the end like, oh, this is a failed video game script. I don't know. You want to watch Spectral?
Sure.
Okay.
We'll be back 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, I won't be back next week.
Everybody's taking next week off, including me.
It's Labor Day, goddammit. No
Yeah.
labor should go on.
I took vacation for Labor Day.
I mean, they pay you twice,
No,
or is Labor Day a recognized holiday?
not at Walmart. We're there for all the people who are on holiday shopping.
Yeah,
This
you
isn't Labor Day. This is Work Day because all good Christians would be at work.
guys don't
It's
have
the
that,
communists that take Labor Day off.
you guys don't have that many recognized holidays. It seems like.
Well, I mean, we get for specific holidays, we get paid extra for working those days, but there's no like, oh, the store's taking off. The only day Walmart takes off is Christmas Eve and Christmas.
No, because I'm just so used now to the manufacturing lifestyle where it's like, oh look, Christmas and New Year's, we just get to go home for 2 weeks and get paid for it. And so it's like, oh, okay.
I'll be watching All Out, which unfortunately John Moxley, he's gonna have to have elbow surgery because he has a MRSA infection in his elbow again. So
Yuck.
Yeah, he needs.
Terrifying.
Oh yeah, he almost died last time he had that. So yeah.
Yeah, MRSA's no joke.
So yeah, because he's like like the hottest thing in wrestling right now. So that's kind of he's going up against Kenny Omega. So that match got canceled. So now Kenny's going to be fighting Pac, which that should be a good match. Yeah, I know you guys don't know either of those wrestlers, but a lot of crazy high flying shit should be happening.
Just have him battle the Fiend.
Well, they can't.
I know.
Or their version of the Fiend is called Friend. He's got a big happy face.
Just have like the ring girl come on the stage.
And then I heard that for the Young Bucks Lucha Brothers match that Rey Fenix may have hurt his leg, but he says he's going to be there for their ladder match. So
he's going to be the guy who just stands still and pulls out ladders and people. That's all he's going to do.
But yeah, it should be a good time. We'll see, or this is how AEW burns and fails.
Yeah. Which way is it gonna go?
I've been impressed with everything they've done so far. I don't really have high expectations. Like, hey, there's some production stuff that they need to like. The matches have usually always been good, but some of the production stuff has been off, and they just need to fix that. They may have hired a different announcer because like they have two guys that are really good on the announcer team. And then they have this one guy who's like a sports writer, who's not good.
Mm.
But they did when they did the Fighter Fest show, which is kind of they had this kind of injected with the video game stuff. So one of the announcers they had there at the time replaced the writer guy, because he announces for like fighting video game tournaments, and he actually did like a really great job. Like he knew when to like kind of like get his stuff in and when to get away and not step on people. Like he was really good at it. And it's like, just hire that guy.
Yeah.
So, and I think I saw a tweet where he said he was getting hired, or maybe that was just some bullshit. I don't know. Who knows?
Well, we can always hope.
Yeah, one guy. You have Jim Ross, who a veteran announcer for like 40 years or whatever, and he was an announcer for WWE during the Attitude Era, and then like was unceremoniously fired for no good reason. And then you have Excalibur, who is a announcer that wears a wrestling mask. So
Like a luchador mask?
yeah.
Okay.
Because he used to be a wrestler, but he didn't seem to have like a long illustrious career, so that's something that held over, I guess. And he's really good like hype man, and knows like basically knows all modern wrestling and all the moves, and he's good at calling that stuff out, and he's very energetic.
Yeah, I don't think I've really heard a monotone, laid-back announcer yet. Oh no, he's got him in a chokehold, ladies and gentlemen. This kid spelled. Oh, damn it!
I think the only one
I want that to be my announcer persona. Hey, Ludes here. Quaaludes for you old people that don't remember those.
Just when you're ready to fall asleep, I go, "Wow!" and then you're back up.
I think the one you reacted to, there's a guy named Don Callis, and he runs Impact Wrestling right now, and he does announcing for them. So there's that one I showed you. It was the Joey Ryan and Hangman Page, and there was like some weird part where like one of the guys was like, do you think Joey Ryan's back from the dead, and this is some ethereal thing? Is like, well, I don't know what that shit is, but I do know a lot about penises.
That's terrific.
Just came out of nowhere. It's like
Got to keep it interesting. Keep it random. All right. Well, I think that's all I got for this week.
All right.
This
I
week
have plenty more, but we're not going to get to it.
So this week for the American Greed Factory podcast, this is Nathan.
This is Conlon.
Andrew.
Goodbye, America.